I was listening to some 11-year-olds talking about their school and their days and their friends. And it happened that one of these children, they said, oh, well, they do have some friends, but they also have a special friend. And in this case, they have a boyfriend. And I was listening, and at some point I asked, well, what does it mean that you have a boyfriend? And they said, oh, well, it's just someone that I talk to more. And I said, so do you have other boyfriends? And they could definitely present the difference between having friends and this special friend, i.e. boyfriend. As far as I could tell, there wasn't anything sexual related to it at this stage. It was quite simple. So it just meant this idea that the topics of discussion with this special friend were quite different to what they would talk about with other friends. And some of these topics included how many children they thought they wanted in their life, or where they would want to live, or what sort of houses they would live in. As I was listening, I wondered, well, wouldn't you cover that with other friends too? But it turns out, no, not so much, or not in the same way. So there was something different about it. And I wonder how much of that is similar for all of us, regardless of our age, and whether or not we would think about having a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a special friend at 11. Doesn't mean that we didn't think about that when we were maybe 19 or 31 or even 52. It seems like we all know the difference between a friend and someone who's more than a friend. And it also seems to me that we become quite aware that this special friend status actually doesn't have a lot to do with sex. It just seems to introduce a lot of that at some point in time, but it is actually more about the connection and the type of conversation we have with that special person. So when we look at this idea of relationships, we all know that we're having relationships every day. We have relationships with the mechanic, who we may leave a car with for a day. We might have a good relationship with a particular checkout person because they're there often at the same time as we go. We have relationships with family members, and we almost have also no relationship with some people, but that's significant in itself. The interesting thing is knowing, or having a think about the type of relationship that we like to have. What are the sort that we have around us? Do we have a similar type around us, or more of one versus another? So if you imagine that there are 3 styles of relationship, then I wonder how this translates into your life. So firstly, what is the relationship where that involves the person that you like, the person that you talk to, likes doing the same things that you like doing, likes being in the same places that you like being. And basically there's an overlap of time and an overlap of conversation, an overlap of effort, and just being in the same similar time with another person. We can actually get along really well with people who share that space and time, and we can have what feels like very positive relationships. This can be anything from people at work, because you happen to share many hours of the week together, that you will go for coffee and you will chat. You might even have disagreements, and then you might sort them out. You may end up going to a barbecue or two over time, or you might simply just know that they'll be at the Christmas party. But either way, you get along okay. And you've overlapped a lot of time together. But it may be that that is to you, more of an intimate relationship, someone who you will spend lots of time with, overlap space and conversation, communication, is what actually feels like a proper relationship with a special person. That person is following either your path completely or you're following their path. Either way, you're overlapped, and that means it's fulfilling. Moving on from there, you have relationships that are completely separate, where one person lives in a completely different space to another, may have minimal things to overlap or have a similarity of discussion and or interaction. But the one thing you might know is that you really like each other, and so when you catch up, there's still lots to talk about. There might still be disagreements, there still might be different views, but somehow it still works. Now this can apply with friends who you've held dear for many years, and however don't have as much contact with anymore. This can apply though too within a relationship with a special person, where you know what you're doing and you're on track, and therefore your time and decisions and schedules are run around that. And the other person also has their life and their path and what they're focusing on. And yet what you do know is that you cherish the time that you share together, you talk about exactly what it is you're doing, are openly yourself. And yet you also have a sense of maturity about, and level of expectation is equivalent, or what's the word? The level of expectation matches an independent approach to life. So there isn't an expectation that one person drops everything just to be allowing another one to live. Now there is a relationship in between, which is more about an overlap. And this one might be that you have different paths or different, say, working spaces or different areas of primary interest or different ways to run a family. However, there is something which is held together, held with understanding. So it might be that you share a point of disagreement, you share an opinion about society, you share some values and some rules about living. You might even hold religious beliefs or some form of belief which is fundamental to who you are, and that you share, and the rest doesn't have to be the same at all. And this may be the sort of relationship that you see in some traditional marriages, where each person has very clear roles of what they do and don't do. Each person may have very clear interests, but what holds them together is their interest or their values for within a religion or for holding the family together. So just by splitting up those three structures, it's obvious that no one structure is actually good or bad. Each one is very useful. For some people, however, the difference is which is the one that you feel to be the intimate relationship, the intimate friendship. What do you see as important in a close relationship? And which one do you feel suits a friendship? Is there a distinction, or are they all the same? Also worth considering is when living a merged relationship versus an overlapped relationship or a separate relationship, what are the pros and cons, what are the communication requirements in order to live each one? And you'd probably find there's different skills required. For the independent and the separate living, you actually need for both parties to be able to be clear about what their needs are, to possibly be quite transparent on what their activities are as affecting the other person. However, also having the strength and ability to keep moving despite what interrupts or moves in their day. But that doesn't mean ignoring another person's emotional state, but it may mean putting time aside for it rather than stopping the world for it. In an overlapped relationship, may call on having clarity of the roles, and it may be really important to establish what each person values in the other, because it may be quite easy over time to become resentful of the differences of living, and especially if one party starts feeling like they don't really want to be carrying out that task or role anymore, and yet the other person may not actually want to make any changes because they're quite content. So in an overlapped relationship, it becomes really important that someone be able to speak what is in their heart and in their mind, and for both parties to want to hear each other out. With a merged relationship, for as long as the views and beliefs and opinions and tasks and decisions are all agreed to, can be quite a harmonious relationship and actually seem quite breezy. The challenge of communication only comes up when it doesn't actually merge anymore because someone's changed their mind. And it doesn't mean that it can't return to that state or that it can't shift into a different state. However, the challenge would be not for one or either party not to find it easier to live a second life rather than simplify or change what their existing life is. So each relationship style has its pros and cons. No doubt you're living all three relationship styles in your life. The question is, which of those relationship styles, the merged, the overlapped, or the separate, actually suits your idea of an intimate or a close relationship? And which one suits your idea of a friendship? Which suits your idea of family? And within family are there categories as well? My question here is deliberately which one suits your idea of relationship. That is the primary question, and only later, once you actually have a sense of what suits what you would like ideally, is then to ask yourself, well, what do I actually have? What am I actually living to? And is there a difference? So that's the food for thought for today. And until next time, enjoy that reflection.